Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope you're having a good night. Tonight I wanted to touch on a subject obviously mentioned in the title called They Hate You. And when I say they hate you, I mean a lot of people are going to hate you if you are trying to break free of the system and actually carve out a life for yourself. I've learned from personal experience that it isn't just a friends and family thing. It's actually a lot of different people in your life, somebody that you might be romantically involved with or even married to. Um, And even more importantly, also touch on some of the other places you're going to incur some real hate and discouragement from. And in fact, I think I'll go ahead and lead with that. One of the big things that is going to be pushing back against you, where you're going to get a lot of this hate from, is basically the way that the system of employment is set up. You're not going to be working for the system anymore the way that you used to. If you find a way to start to carve out a niche for yourself, get a business, get a side hustle going, something that's going to actually cause you to grow and develop in your life, they're not going to like that at all. What they want is good worker drones that don't think for themselves, that show up, regularly work, and they just basically drain you of your dreams, your life, your resources, everything that you've got to give, they're going to take. And I promise you this, that once they take everything that you've got, you might get a pension. You might get a retirement out of it, maybe, hopefully, but kind of iffy. Who knows what you're going to really get out of that. And one of the big things that I've noticed after watching a couple of different stories about this, including a woman who, amazingly enough, actually passed away in the cubicle that she was working in. She was working for a bank at a central, I believe it was a major branch, and I think it was out of Arizona. Correct me if I'm wrong. But unfortunately, she went into work. She was in her 60s, I believe, early 60s, I think, and passed away at work in her cubicle. Nobody noticed for 4 days. Now, that's not enough of a reality check for you. Think about that. Going into work, passing away, and nobody notices for 4 days, and you've devoted your life, everything you've done to this company for so long that when you die, you don't have anybody at home that's waiting for you to even notice that you died, that you didn't show up to anything over the weekend, or you haven't been showing up and coming home during the week. That is disturbing. And this sort of thing is just kind of indicative of the way that we're treated like sheep, to be herded in there and just worked and worked and worked to death. And in the end, what's going to happen when you pass away? Let's say something happens where one day you get a diagnosis from the doctor and you end up finding out that you have months or even just weeks to live, or even just a year. You've given all your time to a company, to basically the employment structure here in the United States or wherever you are, and now you have nothing left. You've given everything you've got to it. You're going to die early, and they're just going to turn right around and immediately replace you because you're just a cog. They don't care about you. They aren't going to miss you at all. Somebody new is going to step right into your place, and you'll be gone, and no one will ever think twice about it. And for any of you that are thinking about this going, yeah, that sounds pretty freaking horrible, and who wants that? Well, obviously nobody does, but you have to plan your way to escape that, and you have to accept the fact that they are not going to like you for it. And there's a lot of people that are connected into the system, absolutely not going to like you for this. They're going to hate your guts, that you're shaking things up just by turning around and leaving and doing what you're doing. And that isn't the only place that you're going to have that pushback. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, friends, family, spouses, people that you're in relationships with, people are going to get disturbed by this. They're going to be kind of frustrated. They're going to feel frustrated because of maybe a level of jealousy. If you start to get out there and succeed, they're going to be a little bit confused because they're going to feel like, wait a minute, either I have to accept that what this person is saying is right and that they're forging their own path and getting free of everything, or I have to attack them to make myself feel like I'm better and feel better about what I'm doing. the fact that I'm selling my soul every day to something that I don't even probably like doing. So there's a sort of a dual face of hate there that you're going to kind of encounter, where you might even be able to figure out what it is that's motivating them, as they can't seem to articulate it themselves, as they can't seem to admit, well, I'm either jealous or I feel frustrated because I don't want to admit that what you're doing actually is smarter than what I'm doing, so I can't admit to that at all. And that's something that's going to be tough to face. I personally have faced it a number of different times, where breaking out and doing this, people have told me, well, that won't work. Well, that won't work. Well, I've been doing this most of my adult life now. And I'm extremely glad that I don't work in a corporate structure where I've gotten downsized and left penniless and desperate and destitute. So that's been a major thing for me, is just finding a way to, sorry, my heat keeps kicking in, even though it's pretty warm here right now. That's been a major thing that I've encountered in some of my relationships too, where people have not really understood or completely grasped the level of freedom that I have with this, because I don't have any student loan debt. I did take some college courses at one point, but I don't actually have any student loan debt. And many of these people have extensive amounts of student loan debt, especially people that have come up in recent years where the price of schooling has skyrocketed so much that the ability to pay this off in a timely manner or have a good ROI, return on investment, to be able to conquer that later on is very nearly impossible. So they get frustrated by it too. Some of them unwilling to just even admit that for the most part that system is broken. Most of the degrees these days are worth very little, if anything, and they cost exponentially more than they used to back in the day. So there's younger people that are dealing with that, and then you got the boomers that come up and say, well, back in the day, it didn't cost very much to go to college, and look where my degree got me. And they're basically 30, 40 years out of touch with the reality of what's actually going on in the world today. They don't realize, oh, well, everything's actually completely changed. You don't work a job for 30, 40 years, retire, have a nice big fat pension plan, and relax. And they don't show any loyalty to match your loyalty if you do that. They don't care. They're going to start looking for reasons to downsize you right out of there. And if you get older and you're making big bucks and you're accumulating, I can't tell you how many people have been cut out of that. Just in my contracting business, how many times people that used to work in other lines of work or worked in corporate America ended up downsized and came and said, hey, you got any extra work? I need food on the table. Immediately, I'm in big trouble. I've had that happen to me. I don't even know how many times that I have to really stop and think about this. It's just crazy how much that happens. So I guess in taking control of everything, you're gonna really piss some people off. And a lot of people that are basically trapped in this, I've known people whose relationships essentially went down the tubes. Their marriage, marriage, relationships, just pretty much any contact that they had with a romantic partner just kind of went down the tubes. Using as an example, somebody that I knew years ago gave up doing a small business to try and get into a job that felt more stable, where they were going to be a manager at something. And the wife really wanted him to do that just because she felt like it was more stable, even though he absolutely hated it. And naturally, in almost every situation where I've ever heard of that happening, a divorce ends up happening, resentment ends up happening. People are going to hate you often if you end up making choices that free you up but make them feel threatened, make them feel insecure. And I'm not saying become some sort of deadbeat that doesn't carry around a job, or that if you're going to have any type of side hustle or anything that you want to develop on the side, continue to work the job that you're in until you make your plan of escape. That's absolutely sound advice, and you should do that. But you're going to have people like that in your family, in your circle of friends, and some of these people are going to have to go. I've had to cut off relationships, people that I've dated, people that I have grown up with at certain points, because they had such a short-sightedness about it. They couldn't They couldn't be on board with me changing into a better version of myself, and they wanted so badly to shift me back the other direction. There was just no way for me to be able to keep them around. And so, to some degree, the word hate does apply here. And to some degree, it's people that just don't understand that you are changing as a person and you need to be able to grow in those areas. And if you can't do that, your life is just going to stagnate. You're going to become so incredibly depressed and miserable and frustrated with everything. And there's just no way around that unless you end up following what you know you're supposed to follow. Now, I realize there are going to be some people that listen to this sort of thing and will approach it with a, well, isn't that selfish? You know, that's just incredibly selfish. You just need to bite the bullet and do the hard work for whatever reason. And it's not that I'm absolutely for hard work, but I'm also a big believer in work smarter, not harder. There's always other options and other ways to gain and earn money beyond just what you're doing in your life right now. And there's always a reason to try, and there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to not have that going as a side hustle and have that be basically your hobby, developing and growing yourself. Now, that doesn't always necessarily have to be about business, but a lot of these things kind of tie back into that. If you hate what you do every day, and you hate the way it makes you feel, and like how many people I've met over the years that cry going into work. They sit there, they get there a few minutes early, and they are sobbing in their vehicle, not wanting to go in, not wanting to clock in. They hate their job. They hate the way their life is, and they know that right after that job, they've got to go to a second job that they hate. Absolutely do whatever you can to find your way out. Do whatever you can to get a side hustle. And if you have to cut back on things in life, cut back whatever you have to do. This is advice I'm even still trying to follow to make sure that I cut back on things. So I'm in the same boat as all of you, doing the same thing. I live in a smaller cabin that I've mentioned in other videos that is completely built up from the ground, designed by me. You know, it actually exceeds code in many places, but it's debt-free. It's debt-free, and I can't tell you how many times this has saved me from utter disaster. From complete and utter disaster with certain things that have come along in my life as I've been trying to cut off debts and trying to shrink things down and start up other businesses. This has been a major game changer for me. So I highly recommend any way that you can, if it's moving in with a relative, moving into a tiny house, converting a shed and staying on somebody's property and making some sort of a deal so you can basically cut your cost of living so that you can get to a point where you can begin to reclaim your life. It's absolutely important, and you have to ignore the people that are the haters that are going to have problems with this because they're not going to care about your journey of you getting there. You need to keep the people around that actually recognize what's happening with you and are supporting it. And the ones that are recognizing what's happening with you and supporting it, those are the ones that you need. Now, there will always be certain dissenting voices that might maybe bring up some points of reason that you might need to listen to, but generally speaking, anybody that isn't really lining up with that, you should really question what their motives are in your life. I've had to do that myself. I recommend doing that always. Anytime you hear somebody wanting to come in and speak into your life, take a look, and this is a good piece of advice that somebody else has given me. I can't take credit for it. Take a look at their life and see where it has led them. Are they actually happy? Are they working in a long 9 to 5, maybe even longer hours, dead-end job where they're in a cubicle and they're miserable? Are they working multiple jobs that they're not particularly happy with? Are they in debt up to their eyeballs and trying to give you advice about what they think you ought to be doing, but the reality is you don't want to do any of those things? How can they possibly lead you to a place that is going to work for you when they hate it themselves, and when you look at it and you say, I don't want that type of life? Those aren't the people to listen to. So, to sum it up, really, you need to just make sure that you deal with the people in your life that are potential haters that are going to get in your way, and you need to move them along. Send them on their way. Stop being connected with them. And within reason. You know, I'm not saying go cut off your parents if they don't 1,000% agree with you. They eventually come on board. Even family members of mine and other people that I knew, eventually over time they came on board. You have to give people chances. But to some degree, they have to understand that you have to go down this journey, and they have to be at least somewhat supportive, even if they don't completely understand and they're asking questions along the way. If they're asking genuine questions, that's not hatred. That's somebody who's just genuinely curious, because you have to realize most people out there aren't getting free. They're not getting free of the system. They're not becoming somebody who's not a rat trapped in it. So they're not used to that way of thinking. And if you are and you're getting to that point, you're going to seem very, very strange to them. They're going to be really confused by the way you're behaving. So that's really all I have to say for tonight. And I would be grateful if you would like to leave some comments, tell me what you think, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a good night.